Environment Committee meeting of the 1st of May 2024. Welcome to those that are joining us via live stream, and welcome to those that are in the chamber with us this morning. Nice to see you. I just ask that we all turn off our phones or turn them onto silent, please. There is planned to be a break around 11 AM, but we'll play that by ear depending on how things go. So I'd just like to start this morning's session with the opening karakia by Councillor Wang, please.
Tu taua mai runga, tu taua mai raro, tu taua mai roto, tu taua mai waho. Kia tau ai, te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumie, huie, taiki.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. I'd just like to call for any apologies today. We do have an apology for lateness from Councillor Waru, and we also have Councillor Kiriopa, who is joining us via Zoom this morning. Are there any other apologies? I'd like to ask for a mover and a seconder for the motion that the apologies from Councillor Waru for lateness be accepted. That's Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Wang. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest this morning? There appear to be none. Item number 4, are there any urgent items that are not on the agenda today? Councillor Lee, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of items, actually. 2 Infrastructure and Environment Committee meetings ago, I asked for a breakdown of how the $40 million spent on the lakefront, how that money was spent. I raised it again at the last INE meeting and was told that this is working its way through the system. That's pretty slow compared to a Lagoima. I'm wondering how that's getting along.
Thank you for your question. And the information has been collated and will be circulated today to the councillors.
Okay, thank you. Second issue is we had 2 petitions presented to us last week, and I was talking to the petitioners afterwards, and they felt that their presentation of their petition was somewhat sabotaged, was the word that they used. Do I understand, they say that 2 of the slides from their presentation were censored. Is that the case?
This has actually just happened at a meeting last week, Councillor Lee. I'll just ask, and the Mayor would actually like to respond to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, probably not really an urgent item. I am just happy to confirm that I have received communication from them. We'll respond to them directly. However, we do request that people provide their presentations well in advance. Unfortunately, they had provided a presentation, but the one that they refer to was received that morning just before the meeting. So we'll provide a response to them directly.
I'd be interested in knowing what the response is myself, and I'm sure the public would as well.
I'm happy to CC in the councillors to that as well. We do have systems and processes in place for a reason, to make sure that it's fair for everyone.
Thank you, Mayor Tapsell.
Yes, so another issue relating to that is we seem to have a practice of interrupting the petitioners at about 4 minutes 30, telling them they've got 30 seconds to go. I don't believe that's allowed in the standing orders, and quite disruptive was certainly their experience as well.
Thank you. We have received, through you, Madam Chair, we have received that complaint as part of the communications as well. I did mention to them that I'll give them 1 minute notice. I waited for 30 seconds before because I could tell they were really in the flow of it, and actually I gave them slightly more time than expected because I wanted them to ensure they felt heard. So while we do make sure we're fair for everyone, we do have some lenience. There was no disrespect meant.
Thank you, Mayor Tapsell.
And finally, the petitioners noted that the music that was intended to play with their video had not made its way through the sound system, which...
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lee. That was all part of the same request, and that was actually put in front of the Mayor and the CE, so it will all be addressed when they make their reply. We could actually just hear that there must have been some technical difficulties, but I'm sure they'll clarify what was going on with the petitioners.
Yes, it was being played through the laptop, not through the meeting system. That's
thank
why
you.
those of us who are close to the laptop at the front could hear it.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Are there any other urgent items not on the agenda? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through the Chair. I have a query with regards a emails received last night, hence why I couldn't place on the agenda, regarding the ending of emergency housing motels sent by the Associate Housing Minister, Tama Potaka MP. And I'd just like to address a couple of questions to the Chief Executive, but I'm sure Her Worship may also wish to comment.
As this is the Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting, it's probably not strictly underneath this committee. I do, however, understand the importance and interest that the community will have in this particular item and the most recent release from the government. Perhaps, Metepso, will you be comfortable speaking to this and just giving a brief update, or would you rather we put it somewhere else?
We have there was a joint media statement that was released through the Associate Minister for Housing, Tama Potaka's office yesterday afternoon. Just as a brief update, because it was brought up at the previous council meeting, I did have a chat with Minister Todd McClay following the dawn service on Anzac, and was fortunate enough to get a meeting with Associate Minister Tama Potaka and Minister Todd McClay as well, to discuss our concerns regarding emergency housing. The positive news is they are very happy to work together. We will seek to form some sort of agreement that will see the end of the use of emergency housing, and that will relieve the concerns of the community, in particular with the recent announcement from Ministry of Housing and Urban Development staff that they were seeking to extend contracted motels for 2 years. Our Chief Executive, Andrew, will work with their Chief Executive, senior staff. I believe we're meeting on this week, so they're doing that as soon as possible, and I'm hoping that I could bring you some sort of update. Won't make the report, but as an urgent item to the Community and District Development Committee meeting, which is next week.
Thank you, Mayor Tapsell. I appreciate that. Does that answer your questions?
No, sorry. Well, first of all, I haven't been able to ask them, but if I may, the two items that concern me most out of the email is, and this is quoting, I believe, the Minister, or Associate Minister, I apologise, the current Rotorua Housing Accord is not fit for purpose. Now, that's his words. I don't know if we agree with it or not, but if we have if that's the government's perspective on it, where does that leave the housing accord? And the second part is, if I can quote again from the actual email, ensuring that there are fewer contracted emergency housing motels being consented. Now, with all due respect to the Associate Minister, I don't know what part of no he doesn't understand, but I suspect he'll be finding out very shortly over the coming weeks, especially if he cares to come and pay us a visit. So those are my two out of the main points that I would like at least somewhat addressed.
Thank you.
Why do we have a housing accord that the main partner feels is not fit for purpose, which I agreed with from day one, but that's beside the point. And then the second part is there's almost an admission, if you read this literally, that the government is virtually admitting there will be consented motels going forward.
Now, those are some assumptions that are being made, and there is obviously some more discussion to be had, and there will be an update in the next meeting, the CCD.
Well, yes, Madam Chair, they are assumptions, but it's called English.
I hear
and
you.
when you read, that's, again, their wording, not ours.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a very considerable backlash on this, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien, for raising it. Are there any? Yes, Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just, if I may, tautoko Councillor O'Brien's comment, there's one word in there that really stands out for me, and that's the word curtailing, when it describes the importation of people from out of Rotorua to our motels. You look up the dictionary, curtailing means reduce, does not mean stop. It also implies that this is currently happening, because you can't curtail something unless it's happening. So that's a blatant admission that this is still going on in Rotorua, and they only plan to curtail it, not stop it. So I think this council needs to look into that seriously.
Thank you for your feedback, councillors. It's taken on board, and there will be further discussions, and we will be briefed as we go along. So I'd just like to move on from that item if possible. Are there any other urgent items? Oh, Mayor Tapsell, would you like to reply?
Thank you. Here's some positive news for the morning. As you would have seen yesterday, and as this is Infrastructure Environment Committee, I just wanted to confirm that we received the $5 million extra funding from Kānoa, and we have been able to make the positive announcement to our community that the Rotorua Museum construction will begin in June. So we look forward to that. And I just wanted to thank all of the funders and all of the people who have been part of bringing this to the start line. We look forward to that.
Thank you, Mayor Tapsell. It was indeed a momentous point in the whole journey with the museum restoration. So thank you for bringing that to the table, and thank you to all of the funders that have supported us with this project, because it's going to be one of great importance to our community. Are there any other items, urgent items this morning? Thank you. We'll move on now to item number 5, which is the confirmation of the minutes from the last Infrastructure and Environment Committee held on the 3rd of April. Can I have a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee held on the 3rd of April, please? Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Wang. Are there any notes of correction for the minutes? There appear to be none. I'll put that to vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, which is staff reports. This is 6.1 is the CCO quarterly report from Infracore. I'd like to ask for a mover and a seconder to receive this report, please. Moved by Councillor Kai Fong, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. I'd like to invite Regan Fraser to come forward, and also with him today we have Brent Wibley, welcome, and Vivian Scott, who are board members on Infracore. Lovely to see you this morning, and I'll hand over to you for your presentation.
Morena koutou. Good morning everyone, and bonjour tout le monde. Today I'll mainly take the report as read, and I really just wanted to focus on one part of it, because we're starting to get near towards the end of what the sustainable way forward looks like. And just quick apologies from the chair, who's unwell today and wasn't able to make it. So just a little bit of background. Early 2023, Infracore began to show some visible signs of distress. The look and feel of the open spaces was declining, the mowing was drawing complaints, and the planned and reactive water jobs were falling behind. The reason for that was pretty simple. We had 30 job vacancies, so we didn't have enough people, and that was in a background of a 60% annual staff turnover. The wider industry, everyone probably remembers, it was very hard to find staff, and everyone was moving around. And so we were struggling to recruit. Discussions were held between Infracore and Council, and then in May 2023, Council resolved to appoint an independent facilitator to oversee the completion of updated service level agreements, which provided information about the services that may be impacted due to funding constraints, and review the cost structure, systems and processes. In August, I came on board in an interim capacity. In order to identify the underlying issues, as well as understand what value Infracore provided Council, Council engaged a couple of expert consultants, Exist and Morrison Lowe. Excuse me. Morrison Lowe and Exist are companies which councils will use to help them procure the types of services which Infracore provide. They understand how the work is delivered. They have access to current contracts in the market, so they have an understanding of pricing, and of course are normally actively involved in procurement with councils on what's going on in the moment. They had a look at what Infracore does, they had a look at how Infracore operates, they've checked their financials, considered options and provided some recommendations. So Morrison Lowe's recommendation was a full contract provision update to current industry standards should be completed. And the Exist report recommendation was retain the services of Infracore and undertake a review of the schedule of quantities, depreciation, cost fluctuation allowance, and other key contract elements. So there's obviously a phenomenal amount of work behind those two bits of paper. And I just want to keep it real high level today, but Morrison Lowe found Infracore pricing was consistently lower than that offered by comparable providers. That's even after you took the assumed profit out of what the other providers charged. Operational challenges are tied to Infracore's financial pressures and exist. They found the pay rates for staff are comparatively lower than those found in alternative commercial models, and exist identified that plant cost recovery is not included within the Infracore rates. So the good point is that we really sort of now clearly understand what the underlying issue was, and the problems are multifaceted, but they all lead to one thing, and that's inflation. So inflation's been pretty crazy over the last 3-4 years, which everyone's been aware of. Normal contracts for these types of services tend to be long-term, and they have an agreed mechanism how inflation is addressed as those contracts proceed. And Council's seen a recent example of that a week ago in your financial update, where you saw there was I think it was a $1.38 million operational deficit due to one of those mechanisms kicking in. The contract or the SLAs Infracore has with Council don't address this in the manner that the other contracts do. So that means you end up with a period of a little bit of underfunding. An example of that would be the adjustment for Infracore last year was 5%, but the industry standard moved about 12.7%. That just means in real terms the money that Infracore gets doesn't buy as much as it used to in order to be able to do what it needs to do. It's a multi-year issue. It's not something that's just happened suddenly. So the question comes, how has Infracore made it through this far? A company will typically, when it doesn't have what it's need, do some stuff. You might sweat the assets, you might sweat the staff pay rates, or not deliver everything that you're supposed to. And we've seen all that happen here. And it's probably just got to that bit of a point where it became visible in 2023, hence the work we're all going through at the moment. So, way forward. The work on the new service level agreements is advanced. It's 80% complete. But the good news is the work on the financial side is probably 95%. So the purpose of today, and just to give you this high-level go-over, is just to give you a bit of background there. I would expect you will see something come forward before you within the next month or so, because it does now have the information behind it. There's been both a bottom-up build or modelling, so that's a look at how long does it take to do a metre of mowing and what equipment and what staff do you need. Then on top of that, a top-down as a separate exercise to be able to give it a bit of confidence around the numbers. So that work will be able to inform your long-term planning discussions for the next financial year and the years going on, and will provide an option to allow Council to work within constrained budgets as well. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Regan, for your presentation. Do the councillors have any questions on either this or the report? Yes, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report, Regan. Welcome. Just looking at page number 18, where it's talking about the parks maintenance audits for January to March, Q2. I don't see, so it says Hannah's Bay boat ramp sitting at 33%. Is that the one where Mr. Ridings cut his foot pretty badly?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
So what does that at 33% actually mean?
So the audit is undertaken by Council. They'll take random audits under certain areas that's under the contract. Primarily that part there will relate to, I believe, how far the boat ramp was cleaned underwater. We're in this uncommon situation where areas that are normally exposed are not due to the high lake water level. Visibility is also horrible as well. Infracore doesn't currently, and I refer back to the sweating of the assets, have the equipment that allows team members to safely clean that boat ramp under the water to the level which is required under the audits. So the audit undertaken there identified there was problems and stuff needed to happen.
Thank you. And just further question, was that rectified?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, thank you for your presentation, folks. Just on page 18, you've got a reference to increased levels of vandalism. Fences around parks, reserves, sports fields continue to have rails broken. Is this, you able to tell us a little more about what's going on there?
Through the chair, it's really quite as written. The background we're not quite aware of, but when our teams turn up to these assets to maintain, clean, mow, pick up the rubbish, we are noticing far more broken than what there normally would be. The causes behind it we don't delve into, although we can probably all make some assumptions. Sorry, I'm not much more help there.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few of us went to the Kaharoa Community Hall to get a bit of feedback on the LTP, and I'm not sure this is your department, but there was a lot of talk about fly tipping. Does Infracorp respond to fly tipping, and what's the process? And how long would you respond to fly tipping observations? Through
the chair, the short answer is no, Infracorp doesn't respond to fly tipping. We will deal with rubbish in areas as we maintain them, but fly tipping will normally be called through to council, and that is then dealt through the switch hats to what I used to do, the SMART contract. SMART normally does respond to those pretty quickly when they've been notified.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. We've got Councillor Lee and then Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you for your indulgence there, Madam Chair. A couple more things on page 13. Down at the bottom there, year-to-date deficit, a significant portion of the negative variance is made-up fleet costs. I guess they're not made-up fleet costs, they're made up of fleet costs, are they? I doubt you'd be making things up and presenting them to us.
Thank you. Through the chair, eagle eyes there, Councillor Lee.
On the same page, there's a reference to nursery revenue. I think one of the reports that you mentioned earlier got a little excited about the prospect of increasing nursery revenue. Has any thought been gone into that, or any progress in that respect?
Through the chair, yes. So we're doing an internal business case on the nursery, which is reaching the end. We should have that finished in the next couple of weeks, and we can really clearly see that 3-4 years ago the nursery used to turn over twice the revenue it does at the moment, and the reason it doesn't at the moment is because we've always had this process of we need to review it, and so it hasn't quite had what it's needed. I'm an expert in very few things, but retail is one of them, and so I'm really excited with the opportunity of that nursery down there. I believe the business case is going to show that we should have a bit of a plan there and get it up and going properly again. That will be paid for itself internally to Infracorp. It won't be a cost to council because revenue will offset what we need to spend there to get it back up and where it should be.
Okay, so maybe I can assist you with a little shout out here. I understand the public are able to go to your nursery and buy the same plants that are planted all around town. So people can potentially have a garden as beautiful as the council gardens on Fenton Street and Ottawa Street, is that right? Absolutely, and more. We're very lucky to have a lot of very highly educated gardeners and horticulturalists down there as well, who that's one thing we always get is the advice people get when they come down to our nursery. It's not just go pick up a plant. There's some really good advice about where's it going, soil type, shade, to help people like me who don't have green thumbs. Right, yes, I don't have the green gloves either, green hands. So, yeah, maybe you could get a mailing list of people together so that you can announce to them that the next range of plants are available. And yeah, it's just a thought, but I'm sure there's plenty of people in the community might like to avail themselves of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through the Chair, thank you very much for your presentation. Welcome. 2 quick questions. Could I just ask on page 11 of our agenda, which is performance measure 2 on the report that you provided, could I ask for a slight more breakdown, please, on the comments, assumptions made in the budget and articulated in the SOI are not materialising as phased. Could I ask you to expand on that, please?
Through the Chair, absolutely. So the statement of intent had a number of assumptions listed under it. I've got them here if you like. So a revenue increase, we assumed that the organisation's revenue increased by 5% compared to the previous year. Now, a lot of these assumptions, if I cast your mind back, the statement of intent, I needed to complete that as I come on board. It wasn't in a completed state, and so there wasn't time to do as much work as what I would have liked on it. So there was a blanket assumption of a 5% increase that didn't eventuate by about $200,000-300,000 for the year as one. So that assumption hasn't come to light. The contract works, so our projections...
Sorry, could I just ask, Rhian, so what were those assumptions based on? Like us giving you more work or us paying more? Sorry, could you just explain what's...
Yep, no worries. So the actual revenue received last year was inflated by 5% because there's an understanding there's an increase in the budget by 5%, but the budgets don't equal, they're not the same. And the reason for that, there was a one-off payment council had made relating to a cost fluctuation adjustment that did not apply this year. So it wasn't a true reflection of what we would have done in a perfect world is had the budgets aligned, and that would inform, which is exactly what we're doing for the statement of intent here. But due to the time pressures, it was just a really blunt, here's what we got last year at 5%, and they did not equal what council's budgets were. The contracts work, so the statement of intent assumed we would be able to deliver $1 million worth of contract works. The assumption was council had that work and they would be available, and they were, and that we would be able to procure the resource to deliver that. Unfortunately, we were not, so we've not been able to hire skilled tradespeople due to, as mentioned before, our pay rates are significantly different to the market. So without that resource to deliver it, we were unable to be able to do the works to get that revenue. The balance sheet, it assumed a restructuring of the balance sheet, which hasn't specifically happened separately, which has meant that we operate a little bit more constrained than what we would like to. Fleet replacement is probably the biggest one, and you'll see that mentioned in there. That assumed that council would invest in replacing old unreliable fleet. Council has absolutely helped out with units and trucks which are ceasing to proceed ever again, but it was not a blanket, let's identify all the bad stuff and change that out. And what it has meant is that the cost for repairs and replacements has far exceeded what was assumed. It was assumed with a lot of the more old unreliable stock gone, we wouldn't have those costs. So that's over $300,000 there. And what do those costs look like? $5,000 to get rid of rust, $11,000 for a new transmission and a 14-year-old truck. Those types of costs. The efficiencies, we had projected that we would be able to get a bit smarter with how our systems work together, but one council's has been a bit more important and required more work than was anticipated, which meant the resource hasn't been available to keep our systems together, which means we're still operating manual processes to key data out of various systems rather than having them talk together. And the level of service was assumed that we would deliver the same as what we did the year before. There was no meaningful fix to it because we needed this time to figure out what the fix was. The pleasing thing there is that something we are exceeding at the moment. We've been able to reverse the loss of staff and been able to, well, not get everyone. We're not missing 30 people anymore. So that's why you'll be hearing a little bit less noise in the community around the mowing, the look at the gardens. The water work is under control now.
Thank you, Regan. Is there any further questions?
No, thank you very much for those replies, very helpful. And just one final question, thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't wish to break down into the details on this, but obviously there was industrial action taken by some of the staff, which has been rectified, a solution has been found. Are you comfortable that with the deficit and that currently in, that you can absorb whatever the rise was or whatever the conditions were that were improved? Are you comfortable that you can absorb that without significantly increasing the debt? Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Through the Chair, so the agreed solution to end the industrial action remains completely within the assumed budget. There was no extra offer over and above. We've retooled it to make everyone happy, but it doesn't have an extra dollars cost.
Thank you, and I believe the CE would like to add something to that as well. Thank you.
I wasn't necessarily related to Councillor O'Brien's point, but just wanted to say from a council staff and executive point of view, we're very much looking forward to receiving the SOI, which will outline your plans for sustainable business over the next year, and that's a key input into council's decision-making process around setting their budgets, which will happen as part of the long-term plan deliberation. So thank you for being here, and appreciate the board members being here as well. I'm sure you all appreciate the importance of that document to our decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you for your indulgence. One thing that just cropped into my mind following on from Councillor Lee's line regarding the vandalism. It's really helpful for us to have accurate information on things that are transpiring in Rotorua, and with your people out and about seeing this firsthand. If, and I don't mean to be asking for extra work to be dumped on you at this time, but if there is a way of getting a report on what is seen, what areas are the ones that are actually the hotbeds for this kind of thing, it would be really helpful for us to be able to maybe pressure the law enforcement authorities to keep more regular patrols or whatever the solution may be. But it would be nice to know where this is happening. If you could let us know that, that would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we do record this work because there's typically a fix required for it. So there are photos and data, and we'll work with council specifically to make sure that information is available and concise for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anything that the board members would like to add at this stage? Thank you, Brett.
Madam Chair, just really I want to thank the management team when through that industrial action, what was going on behind the scenes to actually make Rotorua look as good as what it did. There was a lot of energy going in, and it looked like it was reasonably seamless with a lot of uncertainty as to when it was going to finish. So the board really wanted to make sure that it's acknowledged what was going on with Regan and the senior team and the other workers. But also in general, our staff, the acknowledgement of what our staff do to our community. Partly why we got a resolution was that they are passionate about our community and they want to make our community look as good as what it does. And so they have their own constraints, and unfortunately we can't meet their needs, and so it's not finished yet. But without them, we wouldn't have what we've got, and they need to be acknowledged.
Thank you, Brett, for those insights. Awesome. There doesn't appear to be any further questions from the councillors, so I'd just like to thank you for coming in today. It's great to hear, how things have been progressing. It has been particularly challenging times with the inflationary pressures, as you've mentioned, and the industrial action and all those things that are actually making it a very challenging space, especially while there's other work going along in parallel that's hopefully going to, inform that SOI and actually give us a really good picture of what Infracore might look like going forward. So we look forward to that as a committee. Thank you very much for your time today. With that, I'd just like to move on to 6.2, which is the progress report from Infrastructure and Environment. On page 19 of your agendas, councillors, I'd like to ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the report. The Infrastructure and Environment be received, please. Councillor Brown and Councillor Kai Fong. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. Welcome Stavros and Rob this morning. We look forward to hearing your report or some highlights, and then there can be some questions. Thank you.
Good morning, Morena Tatu Katoa. Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I would like to take, the report as read, and to preface any questions that elected members may have related to that report, I would like to make a number of entry comments to that report. I'll start by a boring subject, and especially as we're going through the long-term plan of the organization and we're meeting with the community and we hear the views and the feedback from the community. It is quite important for us as an organisation to note and remember very clearly that when we talk about the social license of the Council to perform its assigned duties, that social license relies heavily on us delivering a number of services in a safe, reliable, consistent and systematic way. And I think it is always quite good, I think, for all of us to remember that every day this organisation and with the governance of yourselves, we are able to and we strive to deliver thousands of cubic meters of drinking water to our community. Every day, people wake up and they take their shower and they flush their toilets and do their laundries and they do their washing and they expect that outcome of grey and black water, the wastewater, to be received and treated properly. We also got an expectation for our community that in adverse weather circumstances, they don't get flooded, their properties don't get damaged. The community is able to travel from point A to point B safely and reliably. Some 200,000 vehicle movements a day, at least 50,000 pedestrian movements a day on platforms and surfaces and assets that we do provide. The community has an expectation that their household waste is collected. Some 8,000 collections each day are taken systematically and managed responsibly. We provide reliable, safe and consistent access to sports facilities, recreation facilities, reserves, aquatic centres. All the combined effect of all those efforts create for us a platform to have the social licenses to operate for the community. It is fair to say that not always things go in a stellar way. There are always issues that we work to improve, but we should not ignore the boring fact that for the community to have confidence and reliance on our services, all those thousands of actions will be taken systematically, day after day, day after day. And behind the scenes, our staff and our contractors and our arrangements, making sure that all these services are delivered properly in a way that meets the community's expectations. To that effect, this organisation dedicates in our operational business as usual some $60 million a year to manage its core services. The report also addresses a number of capital works, the capital works that we have dedicated to support these facilities. They have one primary aim. No capital works we undertake are really random capital works. They are capital works that have the core objective of reinforcing the safety, the regulatory compliance and the reliability of all those services. And to that effect, at the moment, the organisation is dedicated somewhere in the region of $200 million in our books of major capital works, and we're delivering them. Some of those capital works relate to the ongoing delivery of our stormwater master plan. And again, I remind ourselves, we have set ourselves a master plan which aims to see this community moving to the next 100-year horizon, addressing climate change challenges, densification, additional housing, and the expectations of new emerging regulations. We're also making progress to the upgrade of our core city treatment plant, which means that once we finish, we'll be able to treat not just the current wastewater, but also the anticipated wastewater that our future development strategy anticipates for us, and also to meet the current and anticipated new regulations that come out of the various government policy statements and national policy statements for freshwater and environmental expectations. The Tarawera reticulation scheme is progressing. Stage 1 is about 80% complete. And again, that aims to ensure that the environmental effects of having a community near sensitive freshwater sources like Lake Tarawera are mitigated by an appropriate collection and reticulation of wastewater that currently is using septic tanks and is leaching into the lake. And again, we're making significant progress to that, and it's progressing to achieve the effectiveness of safety and reliability of service. East Rotorua reticulation, we are at the moment to the stage where over 80% of the own property systems have been installed, and the collector system is working, and the treatment plan is progressing as anticipated by the resource consent compliance. The Pekka block industrial development now is going to be served by the additional services you have approved to be installed, sewage and water supplies, and we are in the process of installing those key services to enable commercial and industrial unlocking of land. We will help in our economy. We are now exploring with many parties, including regulatory services and the regulatory authorities and Manawhenua, the water source concerns for the Waipa, Himo, and the Central Karamutekina supplies, which again will ensure the consistent, reliable, and safe provision of drinking water to our community for now and for the future. The new Whakarewarewa Forestry Access Road is in progress off Tarawera Road, which again enables our visitors to go into the forest and undertake recreational activities in a safe and consistent way. We are undertaking a number of playground renewals, and again, it's quite important for these playground renewals to be very careful the way we do them, because they generally service young children, and obviously that's a work that is in progress at the moment. We also undertaken the renewal of a number of public toilet blocks, and will serve our community. So it's a whole range of capital works on top of our $20 million of regular asset renewals in terms of water pipes, stormwater pipes, sewage pipes, road surfaces, and so on. So these are works that are in progress, but again, I want to emphasize that the primary aim of capital works is quite simple: maintain safety, reliability, and compliance of our networks, and serving the community in a way that satisfies their day-to-day needs. So we gain their support and confidence that this organization is investing in the appropriate infrastructure elements to protect the community in those areas. I also want to give you some heads up about some emerging works and risks that obviously we'll be addressing gradually as we go through. Our wastewater treatment plant upgrade is progressing, but as I said, repeated in my contracts, in my reports, we have encountered some ground conditions on asbestos because of the old landfill situation there, and we expect to bring back to this council over the next month of June a comprehensive report outlining the history of the project, and the project outlines the genesis of the treatment facilities from 2013 to date, the current contract, its progress to date, and the future anticipated works we need to do to satisfy the sustainable forest approach, i.e. the discharge point, and embedding our LTP. The Tarawera scheme, as you're aware, is progressing stage 1, but in early April we have received a petition from the Rotorua Board of Control regarding their views about the transmission of wastewater through Tarawera Road and towards the city's main treatment plant. The chair, Councillor Karen Barker, has responded to that petition. However, as I noted earlier, we do anticipate that we need to protect both the council's ability to install utilities within the road corridor, but also have a duty of responsibility to protect the workers who will be working on the road. And at the moment, we are undertaking some legal actions to enable us to safeguard those rights. A court injunction will be initiated that will prohibit anyone to interfere with works on site, having understood the core objective of these contracts. And again, I will advise the committee as we get through these processes. Central water supplies, about 40% of our main water supplies are located at Karamutekina on the top of Utuhina. Those concerns are coming due for renewal in 2026. There is those concerns. About 2 years ago, the council has entered into an agreement with Manawhenua that owns the land around that facility, in exchange, or some exchange of land and historical grievances or approaches have been readdressed. The agreement with Mana Whenua anticipated that resource consent for that central water supply will be a joint consent, and the Mana Whenua of that area would like to have a workshop with the council or a presentation to this committee at some point in time over the next few months, outlining their aspirations of how they would like to continue to work with the council in a joint approach, both to see their own hapu aspirations, but also to protect and support the council's needs to secure water supplies to provide to our community. I will arrange an appropriate time that elected members think is the right time for the hapu and the iwi to come and express their aspirations. We already have committed to a joint consent back in 2022. However, there are ongoing aspirations that we need to listen to, to the Mana Whenua and be able to respond to. It is Rotorua, again, one of the risks at the moment as we come to the end of the completion of the construction works. It's quite important to know two remaining risks. We've got some, by the end of June, we're going to have some 60 Whenua Maori properties that have not installed their own property systems yet, and the reason for that, there's a legal process to go through the Maori court to identify who the legal representatives of these properties are. Multi-beneficiary owners that need to clarify the issues, but we will install that as the time goes by and as the Maori court is able to clarify legal ownership and an ability to issue consents to install the utilities within those properties. At the same time, also, we're still working with the local Maori committees, marae committees there to identify what the installments will need to be at the 7 marae in the area. There is some divergence of views, and which I'll come back to you in due course for that, where some people would wish to see the marae have installations for the peak demand, the super events, as it's called. However, there are operational and economic risks associated with that, because if you install a large capacity in this marae, the question arises as to what do you do when they're not used, and also the question arises what are going to be ongoing sewage rating that the marae communities will have to pay. So we are in the progress of identifying that and sorting that out, and again I will report back to this committee as we progress through these issues. And finally, as you're aware, we have the Three Waters reforms, or the Three Waters redirection, or water done well. While the impacts and effects of this new legislation are still digested, and remember the government has not actually introduced the new legislation to Parliament until yet, but we get at the moment some glimpses, some understanding as to what the legislation will require. And understand there's a workshop later this month, I think it's 22nd of May, where we will have a conversation about as to where would you like us to go in that kind of direction. But obviously we are preparing our position so we can give elected members the best information we have in order for you to be able to give us direction as to how would you like to proceed with that. So these are my key points, my entry points. Some of them, my apologies, might be boring subjects, but I think these are very important subjects for us to remind ourselves, and more than happy to respond to any questions that may arise from the report in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stavros. Rob, did you want to add anything at this stage?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Morena. I'm happy to take the active and engaged communities part of the report as read and respond to any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Brown, followed by Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 3 questions. I'll start with an easier one. The rubbish bins that were removed at the Tiki Tapu, I've seen correspondence around it's not really working, and top 10's cleaning up and there's rubbish being left. Is this a trial or is it permanent? What sort of feedback are you getting, and what's your current thinking?
I think our communications have been that evidence indicates that the presence of rubbish bins does not always work. There is evidence across the country where actually removing rubbish bins encourages people to be more responsible for their waste. However, we started a trial back in December last year, but we always said that we remain open to identify any gaps or deficiencies in our initial assessment, and where it's justified to reintroduce bins, we will reintroduce bins. It'd be fair to say that in the last, 4 or 5 months right now, we only received about 6 complaints about it. So it might not be representative of how the situation is, but nevertheless, we will continue to have an open mind, and if a bin is justified, to be reinstated, we will do that.
Okay, by when? So what, you'll make a decision one way or the other by when?
We will do that on an ongoing basis.
Okay, thank you. Another question, trees and road reserves on Tarawera Road, just below the, or above the new, below this new subdivision, there's a lot of wattles that are self-seeding. They look like they'll be easy to deal with now, but in the not too distant future, they'll be very expensive. What's the policy around that scenario?
Thank you, and through you, the Chair. We have an interesting situation. I mean, we have more than 20,000 trees in our inner city, in our reserves, and so within the envelope that we have for looking after them, we are, I would say, we're pretty much maxed out. When we come to road reserves, we consider trees primarily from a safety perspective, and potentially damaging property or creating issues to roads. So we are targeting road reserve resource investment around a safety issue. We haven't got the full resources to go into weed control. We do some weed control areas in particular with some particularly problematic species. We haven't targeted wattles throughout the district and across the reserve. It's always a question of trying to find the resources and addressing them within the priorities. We can get our people to have a look at that and see if there is a way that they could be dealt with reasonably easy, but it's it's one of those areas where there's a lot of those sorts of issues we've got around the district, and we need to try and prioritise what we can do.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I respectfully suggest that they're easy to deal with now, and if you leave them a couple of years, they'll become very expensive. So I think it's kicking the can down the road's not necessarily going to be a cost effective, but your department, leave it with you. One more, if I may. There's mention in here about the stadium and regrassing. I've heard from Councillor Lee around the cost of running that stadium. I wonder at some point in the future whether we could have an in-depth report on the state of the stadium, ongoing costs of running it, and whether that leads to a program of work or decisions. It may come up in the PARS report, I'm not sure.
We certainly can obtain all that information. I mean, we have we have a good current record of its utilisation and its cost to operate, so that can be supplied. We don't have one ready at hand. The PARS does recognise that it's a facility that's in a bit of a crossroad decision point type facility. Is it competitive in a national stadium market, or does it need to be considered differently? The work that goes on there around the maintenance of the sand turf, so it is kept as a quality turf. It's our best sports field in the city, basically, and so it's maintained at that level. How that might be used in the future is probably independent of the quality of the turf, because you can get more games on a quality turf if you want to use it more highly, or you can protect it and have it looking immaculate for when it is needed. But we can go through all that work if that's required.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, probably if I could ask that piece of work come forward to the committee at some point in the near future.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Just bear with me for a second. Yes, Stavros, please.
I was just going to respond that in June the PARS strategy will be come to the committee, and that strategy will provide a blueprint suggestion as to how do we treat these facilities. I remember that during the LTP, a decision has been made for the stadium not to be maintained at an international standard, but as a community facility. But nevertheless, I think the PARS will include, the stadium, and then we can have this conversation in June. Yep.
Thank you. That was actually just me checking in with the CE about that very thing, so I believe there's a body of work being done. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your very in-depth report and preface of the report, Stavros. It did address a few of my questions, but I'm going to ask them anyway. There's quite a few. The Vaughan Road Cycleway marathon this weekend, will it be finished by then?
I can't answer that question off my head. I'll check it. I'll get back to you, Councillor Patterson.
Okay, thank you. The traffic calming for Jervis and Huia streets is in design stage. What is that going to entail?
It will involve an assessment of traffic speeds, which I haven't completed that yet. We're doing a traffic, impact assessment on that area, and we've got limited budget in this financial year to complete it. I would expect that any works that will take place there will be informed by your final decisions in the LTP, because as you know, most of the road traffic calming or city works have not been included in the draft LTP at this point in time. So the design works at the moment involves assessment of risks, and then that assessment of risks will come back with proposed options to address those kind of risks.
Thank you. Is that undertaken by consultants or us?
It's a combination. Ourselves will provide the direction, the consultants to the on-site monitoring to identify the risk level. Very
good, thank you. Also great to see council staff lobbying for the 5 points adopted to be adopted by Waka Kotahi in the regional land transport plan. That's great to see those, particularly points 4 and 5, which the people of Eastside and Nongataha would wholeheartedly support, no doubt. When will we know the outcome of that submission?
Like this council and like the regional council, like the National Land Transport Program will be finalised by the end of June. And within the National Land Transport Program, we've got what we call the SHIP, the State Highway Improvement Program. I think Councillor O'Brien was present, made a presentation of the Regional Transport Committee. He worshipped the Mayor, also presented our views about that. And now we'll wait to see how our views and our submissions will be inserted in the Regional Land Transport Program. How's that?
The Peka block, you touched on that. We certainly invested significant money to help enable that development. How is the development progressing? I know we lost one major proposed tenant out to Kawerau, but how is it stacking up?
I think stage one of the Peka block is earthworks are in a process at the moment, and the reason we started our installation work is to align with the stage one. My understanding, and maybe JP can be more equipped to discuss about the commercial element of that in terms of land development, but my understanding is that stage one is progressing as planned to, and therefore our works are designed to align with their own on-site installations.
Fantastic. Couple more, if I may. The wastewater treatment plant, you talked about that and that it's nearing completion. Has there been any decision made about where it's going to go once the consent for the forest expires?
No, I think just a correction. The wastewater treatment plant upgrade is only about 1/3 into its, the works underground are nearing completion, the earthworks. That's where we encounter the asbestos and the old landfill contaminated material. The plant will not be completed until 2026 in terms of the upgrade. We're working in parallel both with CNI and the Mana Whenua to identify a location for this charge point. However, again, our report in June will also traverse the possibility of what other options we may have in that respect. So hopefully in June we will have some more information to share with you at that point in time.
Thank you. June's going to be a big month. Last question for you, Rob. The, if I may, stadium number 1, the sand top-up has been done and the photograph showed grass coming through. Will it be ready in time for the Steamers game in August?
I've been told it will be, yes. Yeah, we've had a very good autumn growth period, so it's looking good.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your indulgence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Waru. Question.
Tēnā koe te tiamana, tēnā kōrua. Thank you for your report. Just a couple of questions from me. There's a mention in the report around the lake levels and the group that was formed between the Rotorua Lakes Council and the Bay of Plenty Regional Council. They've had one meeting. Is there any more progress, or is there anything more to add to what's in the report around those lake levels and the impacts that it has on the infrastructures that sit around the lakes?
Thank you, Councillor Waru. The meeting had recently, 2 or 3 meetings had recently in that area. We have the technical working group had studied and reviewed historical documents, especially with regards to the consenting of the Kiri Falls, the Ohau Channel, the submissions from Ngāti Pikiao and NUE on and Rotorua Lakes Trust, on the various consenting issues, of the past. And the key challenge at the moment that we are still struggling to reach a consensus, but it will go to the strategy group hopefully over the next few months. It's a simple challenge. Do we want the lakes to be artificially managed, or do we want the lakes not to be managed? There are divergent views about it. If we want them to be artificially managed through the Ohau Channel or Kiri Falls or any other means, the question then arises as to at what level. Some of elected members might remember, but that back in the 70s and 80s, I understand, how they were goals set for lake levels based on reinforcing the amenity and recreational value of the lakes. My personal view is that as the climate change takes effect and manifests itself with increasing rainfall and so on, the community protection in terms of flooding risks will take priority over recreation and amenity, amenity value. So we're having a next meeting at the end of May, and by that stage we will try to arrive at a consensus between the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, the Rotorua Lakes Trust representatives and ourselves as to what our main targets there. Because without defining the target we want to achieve, it's very hard to actually propose any programs to achieve the target. And be fair to say at this point in time we haven't reached that level yet.
Thank you, Stavros. I look forward to the outcome of that meeting and seeing what the progress is going to be moving forward. It's always been a hot topic for me around lake levels, so, and the impacts it has on the communities that live right next to the lakes. So, tēnā koe. It brings me, I'm still in the lake. So the polypools kaupapa with the lake erosion activities, to sort out those issues. What was the process that that was gone through to instigate that, I suppose, in the consenting field?
Thank you. I can address that one. So the Polynesian Spa is located on the Government Gardens Reserve, and it has a strip of reserve between the lake and the Polynesian Spa site, and that has a retaining wall that was actually put in by the New Zealand Forest Service way back. That retaining wall has degraded over time, and it is basically with high lake levels that we had over the tropical cyclones of early 23. There was significant erosion on that side, and that wall basically was destroyed. So we are going through, as part of our Lakeshore Reserve protection and erosion protection process, putting a new wall or a new barrier in there. So that's a site that's significantly has potential significant negative effect to an ongoing operation, which is on our reserve. So we're putting in a process to go through a resource consent as required to replace that wall. It was built well before the Resource Management Act, and so we're going through the consenting process and hopeful procurement to be able to get into that over hopefully the next few months.
Thank you, Rob. I was just really curious to know how that all works. Not a wero to polypoles or anything like that, just wanting to understand how that worked and the things behind it. And so in saying that, in one of our last previous meetings we've had, we spoke about collaboration between the Regional Council and Lakes Council in terms of the issues around the Utahina and the Ruapeka and the lake area there. I was wondering, are you able to provide a bit more information about that, or where we've got to on that so far, if any?
Yeah, two key elements for that, especially I think when I have presented to this committee the next phase of our stormwater master plan, we identified the lower Utahina as an area what we require to be rectified because of legacy siltation and dredging requirements. We are now in the process of doing the bathymetric assessments of that. We're doing surveys and measurements of where the rock is, the depth of the silt, the mouth of the Utahina. So we're spending some time to identify the problems. We have called for a meeting with the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, which we expect to happen over the next couple of weeks, because we need to collaborate with them. Remember, the lower Utahina from the mouth of the lake all the way to Lake Road and Old Tapa Road is a managed asset by the Bay of Plenty Regional Council. So we need to work together to address that issue. So we will have a meeting with them in the next couple of weeks. I understand I spoke to Rotorua Lakes Trust representatives in the Lakes Level Management Group, technical group. They supportive, of that work, but we need to get to work with the regional council to do that, and it's part and parcel of our infrastructure acceleration fund to do that work. So we're doing the assessment work at the moment, and then I will lead into an action plan, and we will get the regional council to work with us in that respect.
Do you have any idea around a possible timeline around when that?
Well, it has to be done within the next 12 months, that work, because the IAF comes with a very strict time frame. We only got until 2028 to complete those works, and that's a significant chunk of work that we need to start work in the next financial year.
Thank you, Stavros, and thank you, Rob, and actually just thank you again, Stavros, for actually, it's nice to, well, not nice to hear, but it's good to hear all the different parts that the council plays in keeping parks good and our water in check and all that kind of stuff. We need a good reminder sometimes, so thank you. Ngami.
Thank you, Councillor Waru. I've got Councillor Maxwell, Councillor Lee, and then Councillor Kaifong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for thorough report from both Stavros and Rob. The question, what I'd like to comment about is on page 19, the top of, 33. Page 33. I see we're getting the first of 6 National Maori Rugby League tournaments being held here. You drive past there, going to the airport, you see activities going on all the time. Wonderful. But that just adds to also what we commented about last week when we got a different report saying we had a lean summer, and yet all these are happening, and we said we're having top basketball being played by thousands that come here. Like this is 4,000, 5,000 people coming, and Wakaama and everything. So a couple of questions in there. One is, who's the new Steve Watene in there who seems to be getting these major events to come here? And, you know, it's great for our reputation, I think, getting these events and things here, our facilities being used. Kia ora.
Thank you, and through the chair, we haven't got a new Steve Watene. A lot of these large tournaments are probably legacies of that period where we did have a higher level of investment in sport development. So we are still carrying them on. We are working with them every year to make sure that we can host a successful tournament for them. They do have, you know, they are growing in size, and so they do have impacts on the community that we're helping with them to manage. But they certainly, you know, they are an asset to the town, and they're well appreciated by the participants.
Thank you, Rob. Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, thank you for your report, gentlemen. There's a lot going on in the city, isn't there? Busy people, obviously. Firstly, traffic calming in Jervis and Huia Street. Just let you know that about 90% of the feedback that I get from the community is they're kind of over all of these speed humps. Some people have low cars. This is a council that was elected with stop the spend in mind. It's such a public way to spend money that causes annoyance. I guess my real question is, are the people of Jervis Street and Huia Street going to have an opportunity to make a submission, potentially in opposition to these traffic calming measures?
The answer is yes. Every time we design or a draft proposal for a traffic calming intervention, we get the feedback from the local people.
Okay, were the people of Springfield consulted on, say, the Otonga Road speed calming measures?
Yes, they were.
Okay, I don't even remember seeing it myself.
They were.
Was it just the locals, or?
They were. The local residents all received letters at the preliminary design phase, and got submissions for that. And some streets we abandoned that. That's fine. Can I reinforce key message? I acknowledge there are people who actually have strong views about speed calming. There's no question about it. But in general, also we get a lot of people who have concerns, about, the risk posed to their children and themselves, in streets. And generally, when we do propose to do interventions like that, it's validated and supported by local community. If we don't get support by the local community, more often than not, we don't actually do that work. I think it's quite important for you as elected members to be aware of that. Mm-hmm. We don't generally walk into the streets and decide that we will do an intervention without having any communication or consultation or prompting by local communities. It's important to know that.
Yeah, I guess the question is, how broadly do we consult? Because if you've got speed calming measures on, say, Edmund Road, anyway, that's a detail.
There is a process that happens.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Another issue of public importance, as you'll be aware, Stavros, public interest, is the Rotorua scheme. You say here on page 24, the scheme aims to remove adverse environmental effects of property septic tanks and improving the health of the lakes and communities. Are these aims measurable?
Yes.
How is the lake water quality measured, and are we going to see a tangible improvement after the reticulation scheme?
Yes, I think it's quite important to not for me not to get in the weeds because it can take for hours, but in getting a resource consent for the location of the wastewater treatment plant in East Rotorua, we had to provide what we call a monitoring program that took samples of Lake Rotorua and the surrounding environment about the nitrogen and phosphorus and pathogens and coliform contaminants into the lake. As part and parcel of the resource consent conditions, there is ongoing monitoring regime that we regularly sample the waters, sample the impact of the treatment process, and at the moment we are busy with the Bay of Plenty Regional Council identifying ways of monitoring not just those normal contaminants, but also contaminants arising from emerging organic contaminants like microplastics, medication processes, drugs, So there is a pre-installation, and it's going to be over the 35-year period, a monitoring regime to systematically monitor the water quality of the water.
Thank you for clarifying, Stavros. I think the CE would like to add something also.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to clarify that the purpose of the report on the Rotorua sewage scheme is to update councillors on the progress of it. So we welcome questions in terms of the progress. This isn't really an opportunity to question the benefits of the scheme at this point because that decision point has moved on. So I just wanted to put that in context, and as Stavros has answered the questions and provided that context in the interest of being helpful, I think it's just, we just want to be clear that this isn't a point at which we're questioning the validity of the scheme. That point is past. We're reporting on the progress at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Is there any further questions on other topics, Councillor Lee?
Yes, indeed. Obviously, the community have some questions about bang for their buck. Is there any prospect that the Regional Council can provide further assistance than what they've promised thus far?
Point of order?
Yes.
Sorry, relevance. How can we ask the staff to answer on behalf of Regional Council? Be lucky to get an answer out of Regional Council, let alone our staff.
Thank you for your point of order, Councillor O'Brien, and point taken. It's not our place to discuss that.
Okay, I shall move on. Rob, was Council aware until before last week about Section 33(2) of the Te Rotorua Lakes Settlement Act that the petitioners brought to our attention, giving the Lakeland Queen access rights to its own jetty?
Point of order, Madam Chair. Relevance. We're talking about this report.
Yeah, thank you. There is some work underway with what you're referring to. I'm sure that the staff are aware of these matters. If it's not related to what's in the report, Councillor Lee, can we move on, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I now have a question from Councillor Kaifong and then Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. Stavros, my question just follows on, I think, from Councillor Waru's question. So in the report, page 25, it says that the Bay of Plenty Regional Council requires us to consolidate our 39 stormwater discharge resource consents. So it seems that there's potentially a lot of risk and cost for us involved in that, and just really wanted to get your take on whether are we able to push back a little bit around the requirement to consolidate all of that, and is that the most appropriate way of dealing with our stormwater discharge consents, given our work that's currently been undertaken, like with the IAF, for example?
Thank you, Councillor Deputy Mayor Kaifong. I think the consolidation of the consent is not the key issue. I think at the moment it was something in the region of 39 discharge points for stormwater. The consolidation to one comprehensive consent actually is helpful to us, because it will define the parameters through which we design and improving our stormwater system, especially our master plan with attenuation and so on. The Regional Council's expectations are really mirroring the national policy statement for freshwater outcomes. And I think the challenge you're going to have, it would be around the level of water quality outcomes they expect to have. And I think once we get to the stage where we have some clarity about their expectations, some areas it might be unachievable, and then we need to be pushed back. So two things, consolidating consent is quite beneficial, but the level of treatment and the level of outcomes they may expect to have from that arising from national policy frameworks and on freshwater standards and their own assessment of effects, it might be challenging, and we have to reserve our judgment as to how much back we can push for that.
Okay, thank you.
The next question is from Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the Chair, thank you, Stavros, for your usual comprehensive and very helpful reports. I have two questions. The first one, Rob, you might be able to help me with. I understand that a chain has been, again, erected around public access to Lake Okataina. Now, I'm not sure whether this has only just happened in the last day or so. Previously, the acting CE prior to the commencement of Mr. More's employment assured this council, and me in particular, that RDC-owned land would not be used for anyone to close public access without permission from council, without it coming through council, and then that would only be directed by MPI or the government. So can I ask your commitment that that will be investigated today, and if it is the case that public access, any blockage, will be removed ASAP?
Do you want to? CE would like to make a statement about that. Thank you.
I look forward to hearing it.
Councillor O'Brien, I believe it's appropriate for you to direct that request to me, so I will undertake to investigate today and reply to you as appropriate.
Thank you. So reply is fine. Again, will you give me the same commitment as what Ms. Langi did?
With all due respect to previous commitments, I'd need to understand exactly what they were. In principle, what you've said sounds eminently appropriate without knowing the peculiarities of the situation.
Thank you.
Might I familiarise myself with that before replying to you?
More than happy. Thank you very much. And my second question is directed to the Chair, but I'm quite happy if the CE wishes and her worship. While I deeply recognise the very understandable feelings of those affected by the Rotorua and Rotorua sewage scheme, I deeply regret the personal attacks that have been directed at our staff, and particularly Mr. Michael in particular. And I deeply regret that, and I'd like to put that on the record. In saying that there is a fundamental issue for those people affected, that an estimated amount on a scheme has been comprehensively either doubled or tripled. And I ask for either the Chair or yourself, at what stage, given that the scheme is almost complete, will we have some form of review or fundamental independent report, whatever you feel is appropriate, to revisit was appropriate or not? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien, and thank you for raising the efforts of our staff at the meeting the other day at Rotorua and Rotorua. Much appreciated, thank you. I'll leave the CE to answer your query, though.
Start by just saying thank you for your comments, Councillor O'Brien. I equally pass on my thanks to staff and elected members who have very professionally fronted up to the community under difficult circumstances. Might defer to Stavros to continue with the response on your second part of your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councillor O'Brien. I appreciate your words of support, and also I want to state very clearly that I appreciate the concerns of the local community. No circumstances any of us are flippant about cost imposed, on the community. However, I think it is quite important in front of elected members to note a few pertinent things. One is about the costs of the scheme. There's nothing that has happened into that scheme that was not in compliance with the resource concerns, and the expectations, especially of those submitters to that of the resource consents. We've done nothing in there over and above what the community expected us to do through their submissions to the resource consents. Every piece of work that's undertaken down there was done through open competitive tender. So it was no cost-plus arrangement. Those competitive tenders were duly called and delivered through approvals, of this council. Then you've got the second element is the information. What did the info community know about it? The community was advised about the progress of that work. I found a little strange in that meeting where some of the loudest voices were the voices that should not have been the loudest in that meeting, because the record would indicate that the costs progression of the project was clearly understood by the Rotorua Community Association, by the Ngāti Pikiao Environmental Society, who continue to represent the iwi in that respect. And I found it unfortunate, that those views were expressed that the community was unaware of it. A very interesting fact happened that about a year ago, one of the loudest voices in that meeting wrote to worship the Mayor Tapsell, and suggested that Tarawera reticulation scheme should follow exactly the same delivery patterns as East Rotoiti Rotoma in terms of on-property pretreatment and in-catchment treatment plan that would have added another $20 million cost to the Tarawera scheme. A worship, the Mayor responded back saying, we acknowledge your views.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just a question of relevance, given that we still have a decision to make around both Rotoiti Rotoma and the Tarawera schemes in the upcoming LTP deliberations. I'm not sure that it's really helpful to be going into the full background at this time, given that we're still open for public submissions.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kai Fong. That you raised, Councillor O'Brien, was around whether there was going to be any review of the processes throughout the project.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now that the project is substantially completed, I'm quite happy to wait till it is, effectively completed, if that would be the preference. But I think, the public are deserving. I fully support and accept everything Mr. Michael has said. But going back to my original point, was to say to you as the chair of this committee, and again, if the CE wishes to add on, what process are we going to put in place at some point to review how we got from the original estimates through to final delivery?
Thank you, Councillor.
If I may add one more point.
Yes, and then
two reports recently exactly on that basis went to the Audit and Risk Committee in September 23 and November 23, precisely addressing those inquiries. I'm more than happy to represent them again. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve Ross. Appreciate that. And Andrew would like to say something too. Thank you.
Councillor Bryan, in my view, I'd like to enshrine the practice of doing post-project reviews, and I would expect that a post-project review on this particular scheme delivery will address a number of the items that you might have raised, and I'm happy in due course to conduct that review and share the results with this committee as appropriate.
Thank you. I appreciate that. On that note, are there any further questions? Yes. Councillor Patterson.
Sorry, a lighter note, Madam Chair. Just looking at the report on page 34, starts talking about Baxendale and then just stops. There's a sentence and it doesn't.
You're right, it does.
Just wondering what that's about, please.
Yes, apologies. I've no idea the version that went out of my machine finished the sentence. Basically, the pest plant control is underway, commencing at the Pukehangi Road end. We'll support the next stage of the plan, which includes native planting planned for this winter. So
native planting.
Now the planting is
great.
start happening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wang, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick one, and thank you both for the extensive report as well. Just like to pass on my support for the comments made by Councillor O'Brien around some of the comments made to you and what you had to endure, Stavros, so thank you for that. Also like to just pass on the thanks from the community out in Kaharoa around Sharp Road. They really appreciate the sealing of the road and the benefits that it has brought as well. My question is just around that, because I know that the original seal for that road was I guess a pilot or a test to see how that material I guess would work as a unsealed, as a metal road. So I guess following on from that, and I guess from the other examples around the district, what have we found from that pilot, and what do we expect going forward in seeing those materials, whether it works or doesn't?
At the high level, and again, now I remember one of the things that we need to do in evaluating the effectiveness or the efficacy of a particular treatment, we need to give it enough time actually to perform under different weather conditions. The initial understanding of using, rotor millings, and reject material, basically, to create a better viable surface in some other areas is still under consideration. So I can't give you my qualified opinion as to whether that is a sustainable approach. It's a good trial. However, on the other hand too, and remember that we got during the LTP a consideration about what do we do with the future unsealed roads in extensions into the district, some 123 kilometers I believe we've got still outstanding. So depending on the outcome of where elected members want to go with that, obviously we might be, we might engage similar approaches to that than actually complete, seal extensions, which involves more creating a more viable, sustainable road surface through using rotor millings than actually sealing a road. So I can't give you the answer because it has not enough time elapsed to effectively evaluate the efficiency or the adequacy of the new treatment process. Thank you.
Thank you, Stavros. And I have one last question from Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just following on from Councillor O'Brien's comment, the one little bit of feedback I've had from the rather emotional Rotorua meeting was that they appreciate the fact that you fronted up, and I think everybody out there would appreciate that you did that, and that's not a nothing. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. On that note, I'd just like to thank you very much for your comprehensive report and your answering our questions this morning. And we will now let you step away, and we will move on to item 7, which is a resolution to move into public excluded. This is on page 35 of your agendas. There are 2 items for consideration in this session. The first one is a contract 23/001 Organic Services Preferred Tenderer Evaluation Outcome Report, and the second item is the reappointment of board member for council-controlled organisation. The reasons that we're going to move or proposing to move into public excluded are: firstly, commercial sensitivity; secondly, to enable commercial or industrial negotiations; thirdly, to prevent the use of the information for improper gain or advantage; and fourthly, to protect a person's privacy. Could I ask for a mover and a seconder that the council move into a public excluded session? Thank you, Councillor Kaifong. Seconding Councillor Wang. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. I would also like to suggest that perhaps we have a bit of a break before we go into the session. I know we do have another session at 12:30, but hopefully we can get, 20-minute break would be